Hi, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert. I am so excited. Actually, I'm excited to be here. For me, I get to interview one of the most amazing humans I've interacted with in a while. And please, if you're somebody that's not the person I'm interviewing next, don't be offended, because Adam Callinan is an amazing human. And what I'd like to do is I'd like you to meet them. This show is Leaders Living Their Values. And the goal is that you get to see Adam. So Adam, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mitchell. I mean, with an intro like that, I just hope to not disappoint.
It'll be hard. Just be you. Just be you, because that's really kind of what we're doing. And just so the audience knows, who are you?
First and foremost, I'm a husband and a dad of two. That is hands down the most important part of my life. On top of that, I'm an experienced entrepreneur and have focused this next chapter on helping other entrepreneurs solve problems that are difficult, or they may not even know the questions to ask, via Pentane, the new company.
I'm curious about the data too for a second. Tell me a little bit more about the data too, so boys, girls, ages, and when you're thinking about that, tell me a story that you've actually brought something that you changed in your entrepreneurial journey because of being a dad.
So it's a very important question. I have a 5.5-year-old daughter, Vivian, and I have an almost 3-year-old son, Landon, who I'm told this morning by my wife just figured out he can pee outside, which is hilarious. I had to add that in because I had some fun visuals with that this morning. That's his new discovery. He is a boy. I discovered my journey to reprioritization of effort and energy happened before I had kids. And it was really in exiting a medical device company that was big and heavy, and I couldn't get away from it. And after doing that, got to spend some time and really, for lack of a better phrase, reprioritize where I was spending my time in life. And that was in 2013. So from that time forward, that really set in place guardrails and allowed me to dictate my life and how we function, how my wife and I function. We've been together since long before that. And so adding kids into that environment where we build a business around our life as opposed to building our lives around a business, they fit into it perfectly. I was very, very fortunate to have had that realization and been able to put that structure in place before the kids got there.
How many people, when you bump into others, how many entrepreneurs even recognize that?
It's unfortunately rare. And it is absolutely something that I'll step back and I look at everything that happens in life as a chapter. Some are short, some are long, but it's important as you move through stages that you have the capacity to look back at them in a closed space and look at the next one as an open book until that chapter concludes. So, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, it's very, very important that we don't get ourselves into situations where our companies absolutely run our lives and everything that we do. The whole point of being an entrepreneur is to work for yourself. And if you get to that position, you're not working for yourself anymore. You are now working for a company. You just have the CEO title. So this next chapter of my life is very heavily dedicated around helping other early stage entrepreneurs solve for some of those problems. And part of that is by operating profitable companies, which makes things a lot easier than relying on never-ending fundraising and the true challenge that comes with losing money month over month over month.
By the way, I love that. And I do want to naturally get there. Yep. And before I do, though, I did have a question as a parent. What, are you ready? Entrepreneurial practice have you learned as being an entrepreneur that you actually apply to parenting?
Oh man, that is actually my favorite part about being a parent is I look at parenting like I look at companies. you get to build them and construct them. And I'm using big, bold words here. You're talking about little kids. It maybe isn't so cut and dry,
By the way,
but
I absolutely understand it, and don't be offended by these words. This is actually beautiful content, but it looking on the outside, looking in, like, what do you mean build and construct your kids? Got it. Put that aside.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like a company. Just because someone did it one way and they wrote a book about it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. Doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. Doesn't mean the best way to do it. It's just a way to do it. Doesn't need to be your way to do it. So and this is much more relevant with my daughter who's older. But I mean, the line of questioning that we go through, that I drive very, very, very heavily, drive her sense of curiosity, which is natural when you're young. It gets lost as you get into the educational system and sort of gets beat out of you. So, I'm a nerd, complete science nerd. I got a crazy science degree, so everything I do is built around the scientific method. She is well-versed as a 5-year-old in approaching the important question of why with logic. And that's just because I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with them because they are my priority. And that's the way that I think. And it's such an amazing opportunity to be able to share that with such a young, maturing, moldable brain.
I love that. By the way, I feel the same. Mine now is 25. So I get to see all the time and energy. It turns out both my wife and I, we work out of the house, and we actually one of those, we have a child whose parents were just home all the time when I wasn't traveling for business. Right. The interesting part is in the reinforcement of what you just said. You actually did mention first that your family was a priority, and then you reinforced it with who your daughter is and how she's learned and how she approaches life.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not a me versus anyone else thing. I think it's really easy to say the right things and to talk about doing the stuff, and I'm certainly not the kind of person that says and not does, which is completely a grammatically incorrect statement, but it's true.
That's really okay. So, well, it's part of being credible is having integrity, both external and internal, and which kind of leads to you as a business professional, based on the story that you and I have had, but your previous business that you ended up selling, you ended up building to some extent the product that you're actually taking to market now to help support other entrepreneurs. Why don't you talk just a little bit about that, and what was a little bit of the pain and suffering you had gone through, and why and how you ended up with the previously successful business that you recognize the need for what's really important of what you're doing now.
Yeah, that's again, as we look back at chapters, that transition was largely organic and important. Going from, like I mentioned, the medical space, where it was big and heavy and we had devices and warehouses in multiple states and all this stuff. The next company was a company called BottleKeeper. It was a consumer product company that my cousin Matt and I started. He came up with this idea for a beer product, sitting on the beach, drinking a warm beer out of a red party cup. And I was looking for the next thing to do. And we were very, very close. He was the best man at my wedding long before all of that. And so we teamed up to build this company, but I, given my experience in the last one, agreed to do it with him under a very, very strict guideline that we build a scalable business on technology, even though it was a physical product, but that we build a scalable business that did not require us to hire anybody. I wanted to build a company that had no employees. And that's because the 10 years prior to that, my wife and I, we were kind of locked into this thing, and we didn't get to travel and didn't really get to live life. We were having financial success, but we didn't get to take advantage of any of it, which again, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So BottleKeeper, we wanted to build this company completely around our lifestyle. So we put that guardrail in place that we were going to do it in a way that we had no employees that we had to directly manage. And we went And I executed on that journey, and it worked really well. I mean, there's things that were very lucky that happened along the way. Most of that revolve around time, things that happened that were well-timed, completely unintentionally. That's just things you get to look at in hindsight. But the result of which is we built a company that went, we launched in 2013 roughly, and shipped our first product in 2014, and got all the way up to 8 million in revenue in 2016. And we still had no employees. We didn't have any investors. It was we each put in $10,000 for the whole company, and it was super profitable. And we got to build and grow that business on retained earnings, which is an amazing, amazing thing. But there were tools that we built internally that allowed us to be able to understand how to pull levers inside the business in ways that are healthy for the company. Those levers revolving around expenses and paid media and advertising and revenue and all this stuff. And for us, we were just solving our own problems. And fast forward, the company gets acquired in March of 2021 by a private equity group. And I was on through the end of the year as CEO to oversee the transition. And then I took most of 2022 off, which was guidance from a very wise man to not go and be an entrepreneur and jam the next square peg into the round hole. And I started doing some advisory work and organically saw that these companies, one was a $20 million a year company, one was a $2 million a year company, had no idea how their businesses truly made money. They knew they made a product and they had that cost, it was X, and they knew they made money, they had revenue, and that was Y. And at the end of the year, their Y revenue minus their X expenses equals net profit. And although that's true, it's a lot more complicated than that. And when you get to understand the complexity, you get to really understand where to pull the levers to dramatically change those outcomes. So that implementing that into a few other consumer brands set up this next chapter of life.
Well, and every time you use the word lever, I get very excited because we came up with a CPOP, a customer point of possibilities for you. And actually, I'll ask you what it is versus me saying it for you. But what was interesting about that is when you hear, Adam, I'd love you to just be able to share your CPOP and to tell me more, and then we'll where it makes sense, something will resonate for the next steps. If you're listening to this, if you've heard Adam so far and felt his core fundamental values, when you now hear the CPOP and it's a way in which in less than 10 words you can articulate yourself. If you hear that level of focus and clarity, and then you hear his tell me more, hey, this is for me. This is I need to actually resonate, or I need to because it is really simple and very powerful. So do you remember your CPOP?
Of course. Yeah, it's
all right.
million plus dollar brands pulling the right levers.
I'm going to answer it perfectly as both a referral partner, maybe a client. So that is awesome. Tell me more.
Yeah, we take the data that lives inside your business, and this software platform called Pentane adds a bunch of math to the expenses, the revenue, and ad data inside your business and tells you how to operate profitably. And if you're already profitable, it tells you how to operate more profitably.
So first of all, if you're hearing this, you're like, what you should be saying, by the way, if you're a CEO or any one of the CXO functions inside of a larger company, you should be saying, wait, I want to know that. I want to know what levers to pull. What's fascinating when I think about this is you were able to look at different chapters of your life. We'll just summarize. You had a chapter of your life where you were reasonably successful with your wife. You got money in the door, but no time to do anything with it. Another chapter of your life where you had a lot of money in the door, where you had a lot of time. So you basically built your business around what you're doing, and also then exited from that. And now this next chapter of your life is, in my mind, a very credible one where you're giving back to people. What made you wake up one day and go, was it the entrepreneurial thing? Was it the give back, be a servant leader thing? What was it that really said, hey, I need to build this?
it goes back. I mean, the big answer to that question is it goes back to the age of 5. And that is when I was 5, I started having dreams, super weird for a 5-year-old to dream about this, but I was dreaming it, about saving people's lives on an operating table. So I spent literally my entire upbringing being a nerd scientist, taking nerd science. And I say that with love, like I love the term nerd. So the going down the path to become a doctor. I wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. I got nursing certifications before I was legally able to. I put on, ER coats with doctors and played, doctor in the ER in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is where I grew up and had exposure to that at a very young age. I went to college at University of Arizona and got a degree in molecular and cellular biology so I could go to med school. And I was always into science and math. So it was an easy thing. And about halfway through college, started to listen, for better or for worse, to all the doctors I had pretty much ever met that said, don't do it. It's not what you think it is. It's not what it used to be. Don't do it. And I never cared about that until I was probably 20 or 21 in college and just started to realize that to do what I wanted to do, I was going to start life at 35 with $500,000 of debt. And I wasn't probably going to have kids. I wasn't going to have a relationship. I mean, that's just becomes your life for that period of time. So it started to become a lot less attractive. Now, I decided to go in the business end of medicine, which is what I did out of college. Fast forward, then I end up, and I liked that business end of medicine because I still got to deal with patients. I still got to help people. I still got to interact with them as part of their recovery and their process for whatever they were dealing with. And then I end up in a beer company completely accidentally. That was not a scripted chapter. That was like a side project gone mad. And there was this part of that experience that always wore on me. And it was that it didn't have a help other people function. And we tried to build in 1% to this or 5% to that. And it's like, you can give money, but that's not the same thing. So in exiting that chapter, there was no question that I have to go back and refill some of that bucket that I missed for a decade. That really did weigh heavily on me. So that's why everything that I do, including the people I work with that are coming out of, internships with special operations and transitioning out of the military, trying to figure out that every component of this chapter is built around helping other people. And again, not just with money. That's the easy thing to do. This is the better thing to do.
So why did you choose this? Why did you choose? And by the way, when I say this, way back when, so the last time I was working for a public company, besides when I sat on the board of a public company, was Sun Microsystems. I left in 1997. Part of what I did there is help support the rev ops people, the revenue operations people. And at that stage, they were still treated the same way they are today. They were still treated like customer service, even though they had absolute importance in the company. It's the operations component, the mechanics behind making sure that the money comes in the door, right? That you're selling properly. They still were treated like second-class citizens. I don't see a lot difference today. Why did you choose that?
That RevOps component of helping? I didn't choose it. It just happened. I mean, really the answer is I was, 6 months into my, post CEO of BottleKeeper, and I woke up, and I had a close friend who was an older gentleman that was literally like my wise mentor. And he coached me through that period because I think most people would got really antsy. I just wanted to go and do something. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And so he slowed me down from that. And of course I still tried to go do it anyways, and it all blew up, but he helped coach me through that period. And there was literally one day I woke up and I realized my hardest decision of the day was what to have for breakfast. And that's a problem. I could literally feel my brain melting. And so we talked through that, and it was like, okay, it's time. Go, just go start. Don't go and try to start another company. Just go do something. And so there were some companies that we had invested in, my wife and I had invested in, and I went and just started helping them. And the very quickly realized that the first example of that was a $20 million a year business. It was profitable, but they still had no idea how to pull the levers to maximize that outcome. And so I started rebuilding some of the math and tools that we leveraged at BottleKeeper, and it completely changed their business. It increased their net profit by 50% in the next year. They didn't spend any more money. They just figured out how to pull the levers better. And that was the first, well, that's interesting. And then I did it to another company. And then I got paid to come in and help turn around a consumer product business that was in pretty bad shape, like really bad shape. And it completely changed the business. They went from losing $100,000 the first month I was there. They lost $10,000 the second month, and they made $40,000 the third month. And now they're crushing it. A year later, they're doing exceptionally well. So it really just kind of organically happened. And I got to, in working hands-on with these companies, evolve my thinking and math around the product into what is now, a software platform.
I'm loving this. You say, so yes, it happened organically. You had a vested interest. You invested in the company. You wanted it to be successful, and you're trying to apply your best practices. Yeah, I guess that is mostly how life comes our way, is we have opportunities handed to us, and many people just ignore those opportunities. And some people go, oh, I could do this. Now, there was a vested interest. It's really interesting, but you grabbed it and you made it happen. Was there ever a point where you said to your wife, hey, this is a software company. This is a business. When did that happen?
Yeah, I will say, to preface that, what I like doing, because of the BottleKeeper experience, where I ran every single position in the company for the first 3 years, my partner, Matt, ran our manufacturing and the books and I ran every single other piece. I wrote the copy, I took the pictures, I built the website, I did all the paid media advertising, I did the brand, like literally everything. So because of that experience, I can look at under the hood of a company and find things. And that's all I was doing. I just went to the companies and said, how can I be helpful? And they said, all right, look at some of this stuff. And then I can go and find the things. And it was just flagrantly clear there was this one area that all of these companies was missing. And it's the area. If you're a for-profit business, it's the area. So it really just happened like that. But yeah, to answer your question more directly, yes, there absolutely was. I was building, all of that math was in spreadsheets. So I was at the point where I was just going to release the spreadsheets to the wild, and just to help people. But it needed, you can't just like hand somebody a big complicated spreadsheet and hope that they figure it out. So seeing what happened with that consumer product company that turned around very, very quickly, that was the real, watching that happen was the real like, aha, this isn't just a spreadsheet. This has to be a full system. This is a software product.
It's interesting to me, and we'll talk a little bit. So I heard your words and I read your website and I had an idea. And then, like many things, which are many of us and many companies have way too much marketing hype, and not that yours does, but it's like, okay, I'm not sure I know the difference between your product and others. And then you show me a demo, and a demo was, oh, I get it. I get it. I understand. I really, really like it. And I had one observation, and that was, I still feel that it's not always easy, even if the answer is right in front of you, for people to know the right levers to pull. That like they might need the outside help, sort of leaning in and going, oh yeah, do you see that? And they go, I think I should go right. And you say, yes, I agree. How much of this is a do-it-yourself versus a done-with-you type approach?
It's an evolution. And the reality is, I am very careful, because I've learned this the hard way a lot. I'm very careful that I don't assume that what I think is correct, particularly when it comes to something I'm trying to sell to somebody else. Like, my gut instinct is a starting point, but nothing more. So you have to put a minimal version of that thing out and expose it to the people you think are going to be interested in it, and see how they respond to it, and let data answer the questions on the direction of the product. So in our case, the putting out the first version of the product is much more done with you, because it has to be. I have to learn how people want to interact with it and the type of feedback and information they want to get from it, because my assumption about what I wanted to get from it is not helpful. It's not useful. So today, as a still very early brand, it is very much a done with you. The onboarding process is done with you from a feedback, and getting help with the data and what to do with it is me working with you. Over time, as we develop structure around that, it will become more of a, do it yourself, typical traditional SaaS platform, but with a lot of very tangible, direct. I mean, I'm not like a theoretical, here's some theoretical things. Here's 5 things, go try that, because I've done them, or I have access to people that have done them. Like, these are tactical things. Rarely am I going to be able to give you something that math can't answer. So I would rather use math to be able to answer that question for more people than needing it to rely on me to be directly involved in it. But again, that's part of the evolution of the product.
I could keep going because that has opened up some interesting avenues. But so listen, if you're still here, I'm going to ask 2 more questions. The first is the easy question, and the second you want to stick around for. So the easy question: if this is of interest to you, either you want to learn more about what the product is, or even hearing more from Adam, and you want to reach out to him, Adam, what is the best way stick around for the second question. Adam, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
It's on LinkedIn right now. I'm spending a lot more time on LinkedIn as a platform than I historically have. And it's where I'm very, very dedicated to helping other early stage operators with anything you need help with. I'm fortunate to have a pretty deep expertise across that whole arena. So I'd say LinkedIn is the best spot.
Nice. Well, you wear a lot of hats. I got a bunch, by the way. So
yeah, I've seen that.
So Adam, based on where this conversation went, is there a particular question you'd like me to ask you that I haven't?
Yeah, I think I would say, what was hard? Because, and the reason I say that is because it's really easy to look at the tagline or the headline of like 0 to 8 million with no employees, or private equity sale, all those things. Like, that's the flashy, sexy stuff that is really all you ever hear about. That's the stuff that makes headlines and whatever. But it's like a 1% of the 1% of the story. It tells nothing about the story. And the reality is, it was phenomenally difficult. The company before that was outrageously difficult. They're all difficult, and they do, as if you're going to take, the leap off the cliff into entrepreneurship, you're going to ride a roller coaster. And it's really, really important to talk about that, and that it gets talked about, because it's not talked about enough. Having framework and structure around body, mind, soul, all of that stuff is, may sound corny, but it is absolutely true. To be able to deal with, the risk and the ups and downs of startups, being open and honest is a really, really important part of helping other people, frankly.
I love that. Hey, can we show Adam's webpage and then and be able to say, I want to say thank you. This was an amazingly powerful interview. I expected it, and here it is. So go and visit Pentane.com and reach out to Adam directly on LinkedIn. And then, Adam, I have to say, because I sometimes don't always, put a plug in for my stuff. I need, my marketing people would get so mad at me if I don't say, at least, guys, take a look at coachingfest.com. It is a free event happening fairly shortly. And what's happening is I will do many of them. So go to coachingfest.com. I've got 2 others that I've got planned. And the thing that's fascinating is I actually am very interested in doing for the coaching industry what you've actually done with RevOps. The RevOps, I'm going to say the RevOps function. You've been able to be able to have in Pentane something that really will support companies that are between 1+ million to 20, 50 million, probably more, but that's a good place for you to play. And I'm doing the same thing for the coaching industry. And so go to coachingfest.com. Adam, thank you so much. You are, this was as powerful as I could have possibly imagined. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it, Mitchell.
You're welcome. And hey, listen, for those that are still here, thank you. This is now your chance, if you haven't done it yet, to take action. click on the like button, share with your friends, grab that aha moment that was relevant for you. And I'll see you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye now.